Hello heathens, and welcome to my channel. I am Beauty Heathen, and my channel is generally dedicated to the exploration of paganism through the medium of cosmetics, although I am a more diversified channel now, and I do also ritual work, and I also do card readings as well. So if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for joining, and if you wish to peruse any of my other videos, you are more than welcome to do so. Today is going to be a little bit of a different story. Every so often I find things on the internet. Forgive me, I'm picking out brushes to use today while I'm talking. That just don't sit right with me. And I feel that it's needed that somebody speak on it. And where this particular subject actually affects Indigenous pagans in today's society, I felt it was important to discuss it today. I would say might have been about a week ago. And if you look for their social media right now, as far as I know, last I saw, their social media has been taken down. But I stumbled upon this article, like I do sometimes when I'm surfing Facebook or some other platform. Yes, I do in fact use Facebook. And the article that I found was about a Christian missionary who, during this pandemic with the coronavirus and COVID-19, had either bought or leased a helicopter to fly their missionaries down to indigenous locations in the Amazon and other countries where the indigenous people have been completely and 100% isolated from modern day society, which, if you know anything about that, means that they have not in any way, make, shape, or form built up immunities to modern day illnesses, let alone the fact that we literally have a virus sweeping the world right now, and by far the safest place for these tribal communities to be is isolated from the rest of the world. Because what are we all doing right now? Social distancing. We are staying home. We are staying safe. Well, I should say, those of you who can do that, I am an essential employee because I work in the medical field, but for the most part, this is what we're doing. And today's look, I'm kind of just having fun with it. I'm not going in here with any sort of set plan. Mainly because today's video isn't really all about the makeup, although I'm going to just gonna shout it out real quick. I'm gonna use this portion from an Ulta box that I got at the holidays. Unfortunately, is no longer available, otherwise I would link it below. I figured today, consider I'm talking about a controversial subject and people invading a space that isn't theirs to go to, I figured I might use the Alien palette from Jeffree Star, and I was thinking, you know, maybe just might throw in a couple shades from the Mini Controversy palette, just as a little wink to this controversial subject. I'm going to use the matte rose blush and probably the gold highlighter or the rose gold highlighter, one or the other. So if you've all watched any of my content up until now, any of you will know that I, in fact, do not in any way, make, shape, or form hate people in general, regardless of their walk of life. As long as they're not hurting other people, I am very much a live and let live kind of person. And one thing that I constantly talk about is not hating on people who are Christian, not hating on people who are of Abrahamic belief systems, simply because, well, not that I think that it's a good thing or an okay thing to do. As it is, I don't. But for the most part, people of those faiths have absolutely no idea about the history of them, how they became so widespread, or the effect of it having become so. So, because of that, I tend to be one of those people who uses their platform to educate if people want to learn. I take it from the standpoint of, and I got glittery highlighter all over that face. Is there something I can use? Possibly. It's still glittery highlighter. Oh well, that's okay. But, I do have a Facebook page that is not affiliated with Beauty Heathen that I have had now for, I want to say at least 5 years. I don't remember the exact date that I started it with my best friend, but on that page, I very much make it a safe space for any and all who wish to come onto the page, learn about paganism, talk with other pagans, communicate, get to learn stuff. And I have always been one of those channels or platforms that I have always said no one is allowed to bash on Christians here, because I know that is something that I've seen a lot within my own community. I'm thinking I'll start with Cry on My Couch. I'm in a feisty mood today. Let me just see here real quick. Is there anything? Actually, for this skin tone, I'm thinking Gravity might be a little bit better. I have to wash my brushes. Don't yell at me, especially if you're one of my friends who's constantly posting about washing your brushes. I haven't done it yet, so nah. Where was I going? Oh. One of the things that I always say is don't hate on people, educate. If people want to learn, talk to them. And I've spoken to a few Christians through my page who have messaged privately wanting to learn and wanting information and asking questions, because within their own faith, it's not something that's generally welcome. Because in many Christian groups, we are the enemy and we are evil and we are Satan worshippers, and that's not in any way, make, shape, or form the reality of it. Even the Satanists aren't really Satan worshippers. Satan is a Christian construct and a Christian deity. So, with that said, this is in no way, make, shape, or form directed at the everyday Christians. And if I have a single evangelical Christian or Christian of any kind come on this channel and start screaming and yelling that Catholics aren't Christians, you will be blocked and banned, because we are not about that world, okay? Believe me, I've seen enough of them. I've dealt with enough of them. And there are those who forget that Catholicism is actually one of the leading forms of Christianity, and pretty much, if not for Catholicism, the other branches that exist today wouldn't exist. I'm just putting that out there. So, denying your roots, unfortunately, is something that's very prevalent. It's something that I witnessed, it's something that I saw. It's never something I understood, but one thing that I've experienced and I've seen myself is the small groups of people who call themselves Christians considering themselves better than others, even those within their own faith, simply because they have a different mindset, and that's not okay. Anyway, sorry I went on my little diatribe about that, but moving right along and into the actual subject matter of this conversation. About a week or so ago, I was perusing Facebook and I stumbled upon an article. And as I was mentioning, this missionary group called Ethnos360 had either hired, bought, rented a helicopter to fly missionaries down to isolated Indigenous tribal communities in other countries. And all I can do is sit and say, why haven't we frickin' learned yet? Beyond the fact that the entire world used to be pagan, beyond the fact that every single group of people, ethnic group of people, racial group of people, however you want to view it, comes from tribal origins. When it comes to colonialism as a term that is so frequently thrown about, and colonizing, a lot of that comes from, I'm not saying that our ancient ancestors didn't invade or go to other places. They did. They absolutely did. I look at the Romans, I look at, Napoleon, the Vikings. But beyond that, it has happened intertribally for millennia. But beyond that, the one organized group that has been fervently paramount in destruction of culture has been the Christian church. The organization. I do not blame the practitioners. I do not blame the individuals. I do not blame the people. They are basically the after effect of the sins of the church. And you can look up the Knights Templar, you can look up the Crusades. The fight for religion and enforcement of forcing tribal communities to adopt the Christian faith has been a very bloody, brutal, and cruel thing in history. And it sincerely bothers me that this bullshit is happening in modern day times when we have come to the point where we know better. We have seen the effects of what has happened when the Christian church has enforced tribal communities, Native Americans. I mean, they had their entire civilization decimated. Just giving one primary example. You look at the Aborigines in Australia. Their culture has been largely decimated. Their people oppressed. Our people oppressed. For a long time, Native Americans, it was even illegal for them to even own any aspects of their culture. It was illegal for them to practice any aspects of their culture. Kids would be literally ripped away from their families and put in orphanages and schools for Native American children. Their hair would be cut with no respect or regard to the cultural belief systems regarding long hair. Their language was taken from them. Their belief systems were taken from them. This is something that we can look back in history and see it right there. And what bothers me to no extent is that this is still fucking happening. I look at, I'm going to try the color Flying Saucer. I have no idea what kind of look I'm doing, but I'm just going with it. I look at the island that's off the coast of India, where it's actually illegal for anyone to go to it, because the tribal community on that island has been completely and totally isolated from modern day humans. They have been completely and totally isolated from exposure to illnesses that over centuries, modern day humans, people living today, our ancestors over time built up immunities to these things. And when it comes to going to or encountering tribal communities that have had absolutely no exposure to communities and people outside of their own culture, it will have a devastating effect. Because no one within their culture, within their society, has any built up immunities to modern day illnesses and modern day diseases. Because they have not had exposure or the ability to build up immunities to these diseases. And we know in history this happened when people would go from island to island or community to community, trying to expand their territory or trying to explore the world and see what it had to offer. You look at when people came over to the United States on the Santa Maria and I forget the third ship. Santa Maria, there were two others. I'm completely going blank. If you remember them, comment it down below. The Pilgrims. When they came over, they brought over their illnesses and they brought over their smallpox and things that did not exist here. And it caused a lot of harm to the indigenous native communities here, because the Native American communities had no built up immunity to these things. Not that our ancestors had much of an immunity either, because it was a very horrifying illness, especially at the time. But it had catastrophic effect. Absolutely catastrophic effect on the native communities here. And that's just one illness. That's just one one example. And knowing this, knowing what it causes, instead of having the mindset to do as little harm in this world as possible, these people are letting their ego and their God called them to do it mentality to throw caution to the wind and say, well, let's go to these communities and convert all the people to Christianity. Because the Christian church doesn't have enough money as it is, right? Come on now. I'm going to try a bit of Alien and see how it goes. Thankfully, they got enough blowback about this that they decided to cancel the trip. The question is, for how long? Of course, they were initially responding to people like, well, I don't have coronavirus. It'll be fine. No, it's called you don't know that you have coronavirus. You think you don't, but you could still be a carrier and affect this community and kill them all. Literally. Because you're not just bringing potentially a current real-world pandemic that's going on. You're bringing with you all the microbes and viruses and everything else that our society has built up immunity to or resistance to and can fight off, but these people cannot. And I know not all missionaries are bad people. I'm not saying that they are. As a matter of fact, there was one down in Africa. I forget the exact area. But this particular area, the people are extremely superstitious. And after this one child was born, they started experiencing some bad things for their community. I believe it had to do with their crops failed or something to that extent. So they labeled the child a witch and left him out on the street to starve. This is a real story. This is not made up. You can find the information. I just can't remember the names of the people involved. And a missionary saw him on the street, and she took him in, brought him to school, fed him, clothed him, saved that child's life, because he would have starved to death on the street because of superstition. Those are the kinds of times that I'm like, yes, good job, you did something good. Go you. But under no circumstances is it okay to do that kind of thing, especially when there is a worldwide pandemic going on. That's not okay. I'm going to dip into this color probe, see what happens. And the amount of blowback that this organization got, they, at least last time I saw, deleted their social media, both on Twitter as well as on Facebook. Oops, wrong color. And they canceled their trip. But again, we don't know for how long. But I have to sit here and ask, why? Why is it necessary to stick your nose in somebody else's culture where you're not invited and where you certainly don't belong going? And it makes me sit here and go, why aren't these governments stopping this from happening? At least India has made it illegal for people to go to that island. And when one of the missionaries who went to that island got himself killed, literally, I am not in any way, make, shape, or form going to call him a victim, because he literally brought it on himself. He did. He went to that island. He thought, I'm going to go convert the natives, and they said, "No, bitch," and killed him. This is a very, very, very tribal community. I don't even think that they know modern day languages. They have a language of their own. They have a system of beliefs that are entirely their own. So it's not like you can walk up to the beach and say, "Hey, I'm friendly." They're not going to understand you. I think I'm going to dip into the color canceled. Just because I am that shady bitch. Holy pigment, Batman. Hello. Well, I didn't expect it to be that pigmented. Wow. So I'm going to be blending that for a bit. But I have to sit here and wonder, why aren't other countries doing similar things for their tribal communities? Why aren't they protecting them? And the only thing that I can think of is they want them to die. They want the people in these tribal communities to die. Why? Because they're likely sitting on some resources, some untapped resources that these governments and these people cannot access because there are people living there. And unless they're out of the way, they can't touch them. And I know, for all intents and purposes, that we have a huge pandemic going on. Right now, we have a lot of problems going on in the world, and I know this issue in particular probably isn't one that's on a lot of people's radar, but I had to speak up about it. Because it's not okay. And these religious organizations and these missionaries should not be being allowed to do this. They just shouldn't. It's not okay. Let these people live their lives in peace. And these governments need to stop just letting them do it. Because as I've said to people before, I have a fairly fine-tuned bullshit meter. And when something stinks, I'm gonna speak up about it. Is that a shiny color? No, flat earth is not. I could do my boyfriend's purse. Or I could do Interstellar. I think I'll mix a bit of Interstellar and Alien back and forth. And bring it up onto the brow bone area. And just keep blending things out. But with the history that we have, with the knowledge that we have about what it does to these cultures if outsiders come in, something needs to be done. This should not be allowed. Not today. Not anymore. We know better. The world has enough resources without killing an entire community of people to get more. And there are enough Christians in the world without forcing tribal communities to give up their ways of life simply because of your ego. Point blank, period. The wants of man do not supersede the needs of others. The wants of Christians do not supersede the needs of these tribal communities. And it is not okay. In today's world, we know better. You know, it's one of those things, and it's one of the reasons why I started this channel. Those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. But the information is all there. We have no excuses. All you need to do is listen to the indigenous community. And they still have passed down generations of histories. And when it comes to learning and hearing about the sins of our forefathers and communities before us, we stand to learn something, and we stand to seek to not keep perpetuating the same evils over and over and over and over again. We have enough land, we have enough resources. There's more than enough going around to share and to let these tribal communities have their own damn space without us whoring in and trying to take it from them. I'm using Gerard Cosmetics Underground. I don't really have a lip brush, so I'm going to do my best with what I have. I think this might be better. Just with the eye look, and forgive the patchiness of the foundation. Things were not altogether awesome, and I tried to fix it, but it didn't really work. If this is your first video, I've been trying a new method to prep the heads. And some days it's okay, other days not so much. But it's not a reflection of the cosmetics, it's just a reflection of my trying to learn how to best prep them and get them ready and use them and apply cosmetics to them. That's all. And this is the perfect shade to use for this look, I think. It's a nice nude color. I'm sorry, tonight is a bit of a rant, but there comes a time where somebody has to stand up and say enough. Christianity already took over the world and destroyed civilizations upon civilizations upon civilizations throughout time. They have literally had their day in the sun. They were literally able to get away with murder. Literally able to get away with murder before the dawn of technology, before the dawn of media and people being able to watch every single thing that they're doing. So now they're trying to keep getting away with it, and it can't be allowed anymore. I'm sorry, it can't. And these governments in these territories need to start stopping them. I know India has done its best chance and best job to do their best to protect the tribal community on the island off their coast. They really have. They arrest people when they get too close. They do their best to stop them from going to the islands. Sometimes it works, sometimes it fails, not for lack of trying, but simply because people are that stupid. And their ego and their wants somehow make them feel entitled. I'm going to put a little bit of Merlot on the lip as well. Try to blend the two together a bit, just because I know that it doesn't look like there's anything on the lip, even though I know that there is. And for those of you watching this who may not have ever heard this information before, try to remember one thing. History is written by the victors, not by the victims. So if you've not heard it before, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. It just means that people choose to omit in history the crimes that they perpetuate and they commit against smaller groups of people, just to make themselves look better. But knowing that today, I'll ask you, knowing what has happened now that I've spoken about it, are you going to stand with the tribal community? Or are you going to stand with the missionary that's seeking to decimate them? Because I think, for the most part, I think anyone watching this can say enough is enough. This is the look I came up with for today. I hope it came out okay. I'm trying to get better at blending things, and it doesn't look as good as I'd hoped, but sometimes in little areas it was catching. But anyway, I'm sorry for the ranty video today, but I just had to get it off my chest. When I saw that group, especially during this time, making efforts to go invade these communities, it just really upset me, and I'm like, enough. It's time to stop. But anyway, this video is not much like most of mine, so if you didn't like it, please feel free to peruse the other ones that I have listed. If you did like it, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below, and ring the bell before you go. I do check my analytics, and I see a good number of people who are watching my content are not yet subscribed. So let me ask, why not? But anyway, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening to me rant. And until next time, I wish you love, kindness, healing, safety, prosperity, protection, and most of all, I wish you brightest blessings. And until next time, blessed be.